Jason hands it his sides, looks into Conger. Now the 2-2 pitch on the way. Swung on and missed. Looked like a good change. And Ellis way out in front of it and strikes out. So Vargas having trouble with fastballs. Just took something off that and Ellis was out in front. He had gotten Gonzalez and Cruz with fastballs. And now changes on Mark Ellis. So here's Matt Kemp. Matt Kemp doubled to right in the first inning. Matt with a home run, 8 runs batted in during the spring. Vargas waiting for the big right-hand batter to settle in. Adrian Gonzalez on deck. Vargas ready. Jason delivers. Fastball for a strike. Kemp put his arms up as if he thought the pitch was inside. 0-1 the count. Who do you think has the highest batting average in his career against left-hand pitching? And we're talking about active players. You're looking at him, Matt Kemp. Matt Kemp has a career batting average of .344 against left-handers. Derek Jeter and David Wright of the Mets, .338. Albert Pujols, .334. So the Dodgers would appear to have the right man up there. 1 ball and 1 strike. Vargas comes back and it's taken just off the plate. 2-1 the count. So Vargas made 35 pitches in the first inning. And he's laboring again with 2 base hits and a strikeout here in the second inning. Anxiously, Mike Butcher and Mike Scioscia watching him. 2-1 pitch, fastball low. In fact, that might have been more of the change off the fastball. That was a good change he threw to Mark Ellis, but this time it died in the dirt. Waiting is Gonzalez. So Vargas is ready to make his 19th pitch of the inning and his 54th pitch in an inning and a third. So he is struggling. 3-1 the count. Jason set, comes to the plate. Kemp lays off a pitch outside for ball 4, and that looked off speed. So again, Mike Butcher going out to the mound trying to console and straighten Jason Vargas out. Dodgers, when they had the bases loaded in the first inning, A.J. Ellis hit a grand slam home run. Now they have the bases loaded, 1 out in the second inning, and Adrian Gonzalez will be coming up. A couple of reports on Dodger pitching while we have a moment. Chad Billingsley threw good today, said Don Mattingly, and we'll see him tomorrow in Anaheim. And for Billingsley, with the sore finger, it was good that he threw breaking balls, maybe 10 or 12 of them. So they feel he is certainly moving in the right direction. Don talking to Pat Corrales just to his left in the dugout. There's Pat. The other report on Ted Lilly, he's just never caught up. We're concerned about him, and we have to do what's right for everyone. That is to say, perhaps Lilly would start the year on the DL, but we have to wait for official confirmation. But it certainly looks that way. 1 ball and no strikes to Adrian Gonzalez, with Kemp, Crawford, and Beckett out there on the line. The next pitch is lifted to left field. Going out for it is Ibar to make the catch, and then he drops the ball, picks it up, throws to third, and they get a force play on Crawford, who had nowhere to go. Scoring, however, is Beckett, and the Dodgers lead 6-3. So Ibar went out, and now let's see if Mike Scioscia wants to have the infield fly rule called. So if the infield fly rule is called, then Mike says that would be a double play at third, and the inning would be over. And the umpires are saying, that sounds right, but. when there is the infield fly rule, the runner goes on his own danger. So he could be nailed. When the ball was dropped, that allowed Beckett to score. Now the Dodgers have sent Carl Crawford back to third base. And that's what really brings Soch out. And the argument continues. Here it is. A high pop fly. Ibar took one look to see where Trumbo was. He had it in control and then just dropped it. So Beckett, who was at third, came in to apparently score a run. And then Ibar alertly picked up the ball that he dropped, threw to third for an apparent out. So Socha does get one credit. Crawford is going to be out at third base. So the Dodgers get an additional run, lead 6-3. There'll be an error charged to Ibar. And the batter now will be Luis Cruz. Six to 3 in favor of the Dodgers. We're in the bottom of the second inning. Cruz struck out on a couple of good fastballs in the first inning. So let's see what he gets this time. Vargas starts him low and away with a fastball, ball one. So Matt Kemp is at second. Adrian Gonzalez at first. An agonizing night for Jason Vargas, who I'm sure can't wait for it to end. 1 ball and no strikes. Vargas looks, comes back to his hitter, curveball for a strike, and the count 1-1. So a noisy night. The Angels got a run in the first inning, and the Dodgers came back with 5. Angels got 2 in the second. Dodgers come back with 1. Meanwhile, there's action now in the Angel bullpen. The 1-1 pitch is foul back. 1-2. Cruz a little angry at himself. I think he feels that was a pitch he should have driven and just fouled it back. Luis back up. Gonzalez and Kemp out on the lines. 6 runs, 6 hits for the Dodgers. 3 runs, 4 hits, and an error for the Angels. The 1-2 pitch on the way, and that's hit in the air to left field. Going back is Trumbo to the track at the wall. It is off the wall. 2 runs will score on a double by Cruz, and the Dodgers lead 8-3. Trumbo went back as if he might have a play. He got to the track looking over his left shoulder and then misjudged where the wall was. He could have gone back another step. Instead, he leaped a little early and the ball get away. David Carpenter will add up the totals. 8 runs and 7 hits. Carpenter's down in the bullpen. And that'll be enough for Vargas. And you like to shrug off an exhibition game as if to say it doesn't really matter. But I guarantee you to young Jason, it matters. He gives up 8 runs, 7 hits, a grand slam, and he's a very
muscle. And then he had to start all over again on his rehab.
They got the issues in this rotation.
Stetter coming out of the bullpen. It's pretty dark back there, and the first word we got was it was David Carpenter, but it is Stetter. Mitch Stetter out of Huntingsburg, Indiana, lives over in Phoenix. He's 6'5", 215, and the left-hander brought in to try and get out of the jam, and a big sidearm breaking ball away, ball one. That's the pitch where Roy Campanella came up with that great expression about that kind of a pitch would give a left-hand hitter the jelly leg. We'll see if he comes by way of first. Yep. Big roundhouse curveball, but he's inside. 2 balls and no strikes. Mitch Stetter is 32 years old. He'd been around, been with Milwaukee 5-6 different times. Couldn't stick too long, however. The 2-0 pitch on the way, sidearm fastball, swung on and missed. Stetter went to Indiana State University. Originally signed by the Milwaukee Brewers, and he was signed as a minor league free agent last November by the Angels. 2-1 pitch, sidearm snake and a comebacker. Stetter runs it to first, underhands to Pujols, and that's the inning. For the Dodgers, they add 3, and at the end of 2 innings, it's the Dodgers 8 and the Angels 3. If you're watching on television, 8-3 Dodgers, you'll notice they have taken the error down on the pop fly drop by Ibar for one basic reason, and that was the infield fly rule was not called. You know, there's a line in the infield fly rule about a reasonable expectancy to make the play. The bunt by Trout, and he's nailed. Nice play at third by Luis Cruz. Trout's been showing bunt and got a flare single, and this time he was determined to get the bunt down, and he is nailed. Nice play, gloved by Cruz. A lot of times, especially with a runner with the speed of Trout, you expect the third baseman to barehand it on the run and throw. Cruz felt he could glove it and then transfer and still get him. Ball one. 1-0. So anyway, that force play at third that took care of Crawford ruled a fielder's choice and no error. Fastball is a little low. You always forget that part of the rule, a reasonable expectancy. And on a high fly ball into shallow left, Ibar going out, and it was a fight. When you see Ibar on the heels of a Mike Trout trying to get a bunt down, Ibar's inability to lay down a squeeze bunt led to the Angel downfall 5 years ago. And interestingly enough, it involved the Red Sox. Red Sox were leading 2-1, game 4, top of the 9th inning. Ibar can't get the squeeze down. The go-ahead run is out at the plate, and Boston goes on to win it in the bottom of the 9th and win the series in 4 games. Ibar, however, has worked very, very hard to try and learn to be a good bunter, but he paid a huge price back in 2008. 3-1 whack foul down the line. 3-2 the count. Eric Ibar. He's 5'10". Callaspo is 5'9". And of course the Dodgers at one time had Eric's brother Willie Ibar. Signed Willie 2 years before Eric ever signed to be a pro. Fouled away on the next pitch, and the count remains 3-2. Eric Ibar picked a model. He picked somebody that he just wanted to observe constantly and then go out and try to imitate. And it turned out to be a dandy. The model he selected, Rafael Furcal. Beckett's 3-2 pitch on the way. And that's swung on and whacked into the gap in right center. Kemp trying to run it down. It's going to bounce over the wall for a ground rule double. So Ibar with 1 out doubles to right center field. And the batter is Albert Pujols. Ibar got a fastball at the knees, and he certainly knew what to do with it. Albert Pujols last year, and not to lay the body at any one man's doorstep, but earlier we told you the Angels started last year 6-14. One reason, Albert Pujols in the month of April hit .217. That's all. Beckett deals, fastball high, ball 1, 1-0. In his career, Pujols has 8 home runs here at Dodger Stadium. He also had a home run in the 2004 playoffs. Certainly one of the great hitters in the game. The 1-0 pitch on the way. Beckett deals, fastball foul back. Albert Pujols certainly will never be forgotten in the National League. One of only 5 National Leaguers ever to win the MVP at least 3 times. Who are the others? Well, Barry Bonds, Mike Schmidt, Roy Campanella, and a fella named Musial. 1-1 to Albert. Beckett certainly watching the runners tonight, keeping an eye on Ibar. There's always some little note about a player that you find unbelievable, and there is one note about Pujols, considering what he has done, that you find, how could that possibly be? Time. The note is Albert Pujols was the 402nd pick in the 1999 draft. 401 other players were selected ahead of him. 1 ball, 1 strike, ground foul outside of third. We're only in the 3rd inning, so we're still in a simulcast. I mean, just in case you joined us. Well, poor Jason Vargas had a nightmare. Made 60 pitches in the first 2 innings and couldn't go 2 innings. It happened. A.J. Ellis with a grand slam home run against him. Really set the tone for the Dodgers. 1-2 the count. Beckett very deliberate, and the next pitch fooled away. He fooled Pujols. That was a very awkward swing, and Pujols kind of looked out as if to say, yeah, good for you. You did fake me on that. Watch this swing. Half, he didn't quite know what to do with it. and he looks out and kind of grins. Now back to being serious. Albert's 33. He's from Santo Domingo, as you probably know, the youngest of 11 children. 1-2 to Albert Pujols. Taken, strike 3 called. Do your job, Pujols growls as he walks away. 2 down. Pitch fooled him, I think, in the sense he thought it was inside, and it seemed to drift back and catch the inside corner. So for Beckett, he has 4 strikeouts. He has 2 down with Ibar at second base, and now Josh Hamilton at the plate. One big hitter after another. Hamilton has a look at a strike. 0-1 to Josh, and he looks questioningly at umpire Ripperberger. Hamilton with a couple of home runs in spring training. Strike 1 pitch coming up. Beckett very deliberate, watching Ibar. Hamilton tries to time one and fouls it off. One of the things I think that Jock Hamilton will forever remember, Josh, during the 2008 Home Run Derby, and that was the last All-Star game at Yankee Stadium, in the first round of the competition, he hit 28 home runs. He was then so exhausted he couldn't possibly win. But he'll never forget that. Justin Morneau beat him out. Strike 2 pitch on the way. Change off the plate. So this is indeed a very different Josh Beckett. No longer can he rely on the express, making a lot of off-speed pitches, speeding up, slowing down in his delivery a little bit, and leading 8-3. The 1-2 pitch on the way. Beckett said, here he comes. Fastball whacked down the left field line, base hit. So he went back to his strength, which might be a weakness, and the run scores on a double by Josh Hamilton. So I guess he figured with all the off-speed pitches, I'll try to sneak a fastball by. And that's that old line about trying to get a lamb chop by a wolf. So Hamilton doubles to left. Ibar scores, and it's now 8-4 Dodgers. Hamilton going the other way. And the batter, Mark Trumbo. Trumbo struck out in the second inning, 0-for-1. Beckett looking back at Hamilton, now to his hitter, and he's in the dirt. Nice block by A.J. Ellis. Beckett made 35 pitches in the first 2 innings, so he was doing okay, certainly compared to Vargas. Now Trumbo back in and waiting. 1 ball and no strikes. Trumbo lives on this count. Look out. 1-0 with him. Tell you why. Yep, ground ball, but this time an out. Ground ball to third. In his career, Mark Trumbo on a 1 ball no strike count is hitting .413. Hello. And at the end of 2.5, 8-4 Dodgers. Dodgers leading the Angels 8-4. Angels scored in the first inning. Dodgers came back with 5 on a grand slam by A.J. Ellis. Angels bounced back with 2 to make it 5-3. Dodgers came back with 3 to leave 8-3, and the Angels scored in the third inning. Well, we knew he was around. We thought he was coming in earlier, and Stetters came in to get Ethier, and now they bring in David Carpenter, and he will pick up. He'll be going up against A.J. Ellis, Justin Sellers, and we'll see about Beckett. David Carpenter, 25 years old. Pretty good fastball, in for a strike. From Arlington, Texas, lives in Grand Prairie, Texas. Signed by the Angels back in 2009. So he hadn't pitched a lot. Fastball away, so he now evens it up, 1 ball and 1 strike. Wild ball game, 8-4 Dodgers, and we're only in the bottom of the third. 1-1 pitch on the way. Slider, 1-2. Did you ever take a rubber ball or a tennis ball and cut it in half, turn it inside out the half, and then scale it? It will really sail on you. And that last pitch, that slider he threw, looked exactly as if he had cut a tennis ball in half and sailed it. The 1-2 pitch, there's another one, down and away. 2 balls and 2 strikes they count. 8 runs, 7 hits, no errors for the Dodgers, including a grand slam by A.J. Ellis, doubles by Matt Kemp and Luis Cruz. The Angels, a 2-run home run by Alberto Callaspo and doubles by Ibar and Hamilton. Fastball ties up Ellis. He fouls it back to the screen. Though the battle continues. 2-2 the count. Ellis looking out at Carpenter, who is 6'3" and maybe 180 pounds. Right-hander ready in the 2-2 pitch to A.J. Ellis. Swung on and hit into right center field. It'll drop for a base hit. It was a breaking ball away. Ellis just went with it. So A.J. Ellis with a grand slam home run, and now a leadoff single to right center. And the batter will be Justin Sellers. Sellers flied to center in the first inning, 0 for 1. Don't forget, Monday, opening day with the Giants. Game time 1:10 and all the pomp and ceremony that always precedes an opener. All the excitement. And then the world champion Giants led by Matt Cain. And the battle cry for the Dodgers, win now with Kershaw. And that'll be quite a battle in game 1. 1 ball and no strikes the count. Carpenter ready. David delivers. Ground ball up the middle and goes through into center field. Stopping at second is Ellis. So the Dodgers now have 9 hits in 2 innings plus. Of course, no team has it made for sure. And even a power club like the Angels have to be concerned with their pitching. Just so as the Dodgers with their power and their talent. And for Mike Scioscia, his bullpen in some area seems strong, another area a little weak. Until Ryan Madson gets 100% for sure. So 2 on, nobody out. Josh Beckett up there in what appears to be a bunt situation. Pujols and Callaspo in on the grass. Josh shows bunt. Turns around, shows it again. And the pitch to him, he lays off a pitch outside. Ball 1. 1-0. One of the oldest defensive plays on a bunt, and I'm sure Wallach going to be talking to Beckett. The first time what you do, you have your third baseman charge the plate, you have your shortstop break to cover second, and you have your second baseman break to cover first. So if you're the runner out there at second base, you say, oh, it's a holiday. I got plenty of room to get down at least halfway. But after the first time, the next time the second baseman doubles back to the bag. Beckett tries to, doesn't get it. Same play each time. Callaspo coming, Ibar covering. Kendrick heading to back up Pujols. Well, that's the same play twice. But boy, once you take it for granted, if you're Ellis out there at second thinking, wow, Kendrick's gone to first, Ibar's gone to third, I can take a huge lead. But Ellis has been around long enough to keep one eye on Howie Kendrick. 2 balls and no strikes. They're squeezing, and this time they go back and they throw it into center field, but threw it hard so that Trout was right there to recover. But that's the battle inside the game. The second baseman and the runner at second. The throw behind Ellis, but he could see Trout racing in. So for fun, we'll keep an eye on Howie Kendrick because it certainly looks like a bunt situation. Ibar ready to cover third. Callaspo caddy corner. Kendrick is going to break, and a full swing on a 2-0 count. 2-1. So now 2 balls and 1 strike. David Carpenter trying to take care of Beckett. Runners taking a cautious lead. The pitch, the bunt is missed. Yep, but the runner's holding. 2-2 the count. Now Tim Wallach looks in the dugout to get a sign, relays it. Beckett picks it off. So do the runners. Don Mattingly, we'll see what he plays with 2 strikes. Nobody out. The 2-2 pitch. Beckett is not bunting, swinging, and strikes out. So all of that for that. A strikeout. Runners holding at first and second with 1 out. And the batter will be Carl Crawford, who is 2 for 2. Crawford making his debut at Dodger Stadium. Very impressive. A line drive single to center, a line drive single to right. A.J. Ellis taking his lead at second. Crawford waiting. Here comes the pitch, and the pitch is a little low. Ball 1, 1-0. For Carl Crawford, he thinks back to growing up at 14, working at his grandfather's barbecue joint. It was called Burns Barbecue. He did all kinds of work from there. Says it stimulated him to work harder and move on to better things. For Crawford, although you can't see it with the long sleeve jersey, he's had the tattoo Killer and Ola at me on his biceps for several years. The next pitch low and away. So 3-0 the count to Carl Crawford. Crawford in the home run department has hit as many as 19 for the Rays. So we'll see what he does 3-0. Mark Ellis on deck. Carpenter set, right-hander deals and gets it in there inside corner. 3-1 the count. Dodgers 8, Angels 4. Waiting on deck Mark Ellis and David Carpenter, the third pitcher, ready to go for the Angels. Now the 3-1 pitch. Carpenter deals, ground ball to right side. Kendrick goes to second, and a good hard slide ties up the second baseman. However, rounding third and being tagged out is A.J. Ellis. So it looked like a double play, and they finally get Ellis rounding third because they could not get the force play at second base. And the Dodgers come up empty. One last look on television. Kendrick got it to Ibar, but a good hook slide took the play away, only to have exposed A.J. Ellis tagged out, and it's 8-4 Dodgers. The Dodgers leading 8-4. Have been 15 hits already in the first 3 innings and 12 runs scored. The Dodgers with Josh Beckett still in there. And it's been Vargas, Stetters, and Carpenter. The new boards have now been displayed to the crowd here, and we happily display them to you. They are absolutely magnificent. Here's part of the enjoyment, the whole new blue here at Dodger Stadium. So Beckett working on Howie Kendrick. Off speed for a strike. Kendrick singled to center in the second inning. Boy, he was born to hit. No two ways about it. Marvelous hitter. Way out in front of that change. So that takes care of Kendrick. He's 1 for 2 as he strikes out. Say a reminder. Bring the kids to Dodger Stadium on Sunday, April the 7th. The Dodgers and the Pirates. First 15,000 ticketed kids, 14 and under in attendance, receive their own Matt Kemp replica jersey, compliments of Dreyer's Grand Ice Cream. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. Here's Callaspo. 1 ball and no strikes. Callaspo homered down the right field line with Kendrick aboard in the second inning. 2-0. 1 out, 4th inning, 8-4 in favor of the Dodgers. Little dribbler foul to Alfredo Griffin. 2-1. Big blow tonight. Grand slam home run by A.J. Ellis. And that's going to be hooked down the right field line, in there for a base hit. Over to get it is Ethier, and he will hold it to a single. So Callaspo has a home run, kind of stung his hands on that base hit to right field. It hurts in an exhibition game. It doesn't hurt at all during the regular season. That's not a stung hand. That's bread and butter during the regular. So Callaspo, 2 for 2, and here's Hank Conger. way out in front. Conger struck out in the second inning. Josh Beckett has struck out 4, striking out the side in the second, and then getting Pujols in the third. Trying to golf that one. 0-2 to Hank. Couple of things about the Angels from last year. Last year they were very good to run the count on the pitcher. That's going to go down the line, foul in a hurry. The Angels were in the middle of the league as far as swinging at the first pitch. Mike, offensively, however, they were 5th highest in swinging on 3-0 counts, and the 4th highest in swinging on 2-0 counts. Of course, with the lineup he has this year, and with them being healthy, they'll be swinging a lot 2-0 and 3-0, I'm sure. Foul ball. Last year, way above average, the Angels had the highest number of infield hits. Now, remember tonight we saw Mike Trout try to bunt a couple of times and then bunt and get thrown out. Well, last year they had the highest number of bunts, 100% more than the second place team. They had 26 bunt singles last year. Ball 1. I'll have to check the pitch count on Josh Beckett because he's still in there. And there you can see 68 pitches, and he's in the 4th inning. Off speed by the diving Adrian Gonzalez for a hit. Rounding second and holding on is Callaspo. Though the Angels now, with Conger getting a base hit, that runners at first and second, and J.B. Shuck is going to come up and bat for Carpenter. So Beckett getting close to 70 pitches, and now will face the pinch hitter, a left-hand batter. You might remember that name, Shuck, from 2 years ago. He was with Houston, and he hit 272. JB from Wetterville, Ohio, lives in Galion, Ohio. Starts him breaking ball for ball 1. Shuck is 25 years old. Be 26 the middle of June. He's a Buckeye. He went to Ohio State University. Though he has 2 on, 1 out. And slaps it to left, but coming up is Crawford and gets it back in. So Shuck, fly ball to left field. Interesting to see how Crawford handled the ball, threw it on the fly to Sellers. And normally you say, well, there's no big deal. Well, there is a big deal when you're coming back from Tommy John surgery. And he handled it and got it quickly back in. Nor did Sellers go way out as if he was expecting to be a cutoff man. And of course, everyone knows Crawford can play. The only real question about him is how was the arm just a couple of days before opening day. So 2 out, 2 on. And here is the amazing young Mr. Trout. When you break down Mike Trout's average last year, the sign of a truly wonderful player. He hit better as the game went on and as his at-bats accumulated. In other words, he was adjusting. His first at-bat averaged 275. His second at-bat, 361. His third time up, his average for the year was .393, and then his fourth time up, .368. And as a rookie, that's truly remarkable. 1 ball and no strikes. Off speed for a strike. 1-1. You can only pray that Mike Trout never has the demons that consumed Mickey Mantle. He's had so many God-given gifts. We pray that he uses them for as long as Mantle did, at least. That's 18 years. 1 ball and 1 strike. Ball 2, 2-1. So Beckett's pitches starting to take its toll now. That fastball was 88. And of course, with Trout, 1 swing, and the Angels are suddenly within 1. You know the story about Mike Trout last year in spring training in Scottsdale, when the 9 veterans took him to a fancy steakhouse, and I mean they had the best of meats and the finest of wines, and he got the bill for $1,800. What would you do if you're 19 and you get the bill for $1,800? He called his mom. His mom said, "Look, pay it with your credit card and we'll take care of it," which he did. And the next day, he got to his locker room in the Angel clubhouse, and there was a little truck, and it was filled 7,200 quarters. I'll do the math. That's $1,800. Spring training for the rookie. 3-1. Fastball and a good one. He had that thing moving a little bit. 91 miles an hour. It was the location, of course. A little bit down, a little bit away. So 3-2 and 2 down. Callaspo and Conger will be ready to go. And hitting behind Trout, Eric Ibar. So it's a big pitch for Josh Beckett. The Rabbits ready to go. Three and 2. The runners go. Off speed, whack to left, down the line, in the corner, into the seats. 3-run home run for Mike Trout. What a blessed young man he is. You just wonder how he can possibly get better. And then you realize he's got plenty of time to do just that. So it's 8-7. Beckett tried to get a breaking ball down, and Trout is strong enough. He didn't have to hit it hard. He went down to get it, and it carries over right into the seats. So for Beckett, the big home run to Mike Trout, and it's Dodgers 8, Angels 7. Down in the Dodger bullpen, Ronald Belisario begins to loosen up. So for Mike Trout, he brings the Angels right back into the game, as he did that countless number of times. What a young player. Wow. So Josh Beckett gives up the home run. Now he has to get Ibar. Josh trying to go 4 innings. Ibar has popped up and doubled, off speed and in for a strike. 0-1. No balls and 1 strike to count. Showing bunt, takes low. Ibar constantly in motion. One ball, 1 strike. Fastball, loop to center. Kemp is there, and that's the inning. But the inning, 2 singles, and with 2 out, a 3-2 pitch hit out by Mike Trout. And at the end of 3.5 innings, 8-7 Dodgers. On KCAL 9, brought to you by Time Warner Cable. Enjoy all the things you love better. Call Time Warner Cable. 1-855-WANT-TWC. The Angels go to the bullpen, and Garrett Richards will pick up. By the way, J.B. Shuck, who batted for Carpenter, stays in the game in center field. Mike Trout has done enough. Single, a stolen base, 3-run home run, scored twice, and Richards picks up. Garrett's a local boy. He's from Riverside, although he makes his home now in Edmonds, Oklahoma. Went to school there and was a #1 pick by the Angels out of the University of Oklahoma. Went to Edmonds when he was 8 years old. So Richards is now the 4th pitcher and working on Mark Ellis for ball 1. 8 runs, 9 hits for the Dodgers, 7 runs, 9 hits for the Angels, and we are only in the 4th inning. That's a strike to Ellis, who singled and struck out. Mark 1 for 2. Garrett Richards accepted a baseball scholarship to the University of Oklahoma, but he was not a smashing success, and that's a strike. Richards had an earned run average in 3 years at Oklahoma. It was 6.5. He said he majored in human relations at Oklahoma, but was really interested in culinary arts and might have pursued that if it wasn't for pro baseball. Fastball pulled to third. Callaspo. 1 away. So Matt Kemp will be coming up. By the way, Beckett made a total of 80 pitches, and they assume that that will be enough for him tonight. So the starting pitchers, Jason Vargas made 60 pitches. Beckett lasted longer and made 80. Well, talking about Oklahoma, here's Matt Kemp. Matt from Midwest City, Oklahoma, against the pride of Edmonds, Garrett Richards. Fastball. Matt so far tonight double to right field to drive in a run and walk. In the dirt. He's going to get away with it. They'll keep the ball in play. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. Garrett is 6'3", 215 pounds. He'll be 25 the end of May. Check swing. That'll cost a strike. 1 and 2. That fastball has a lot of sink to it. That's what happened on that pitch. And that sinking fastball has been clocked as high as 96. He also has a very hard slider, curveball, and a changeup. 1 and 2. Sinker. Good sink on a fastball. Boy, that's a great pitch. It's there, and it's down there. And it's coming up there in the high 90s. So we have 2 out in the 4th inning. Adrian Gonzalez has struck out, reached on a error, which turned out to be the fielder's choice. That was the high pop fly dropped by Ibar. Sinker that missed. 1 ball and no strikes. One and 1 the count. 2 out in the 4th inning. When the Angels come up in the 5th, they'll have Albert Pujols, Josh Hamilton, and Mark Trumbo. One of the big guns has left the lineup, Mike Trout, who had a single, a stolen base, a run scored in the 1st inning, and a 3-run home run in the 4th. 1 and 1. Overthrew on that pitch, trying to get a little something extra. They were working with him last year to have a nice, clean, consistent, repeatable delivery. And all of a sudden that pitch was a throwback. It was not the clean, desirable relief. 2 and 1. Wow. 2 and 2 the count. Gonzalez annoyed with himself and so far struggling with his swing. Just show him a high fastball away and he goes 3 and 2. Gonzalez in some ways might pay a price. He was one hitter in San Diego. He might have changed a little bit in Fenway Park in Boston with that wall in left field and the scoreboard. And just a little dribbler. Pujols to Richards. Easy inning. So an impressive inning for Garrett Richards. Don't forget Pujols leads off. And we're heading to the 5th. 8-7 Dodgers. Somewhat of a slugfest tonight. The Dodgers 8 runs, 9 hits. And for the Angels, getting close, they've come back 7 runs, 9 hits. A.J. Ellis hit the grand slam in the first inning, and Luis Cruz had a big 2-run double, but Mike Trout went 2 for 3, and his 3-run home run got the Angels to within 1. So Ronald Belisario, the big boy out of Maracay, Venezuela, 6'3", 240, originally signed by the Marlins, had the remarkable record of 8-1 last year with an ERA of 2.5. So Belisario ready to pick up and face Albert Pujols. Pujols singled and struck out, and Belisario ready to work against him. So Albert from the Dominican Republic, Ronald Belisario. You know, we were talking before about the imprint that Pujols left in the National League. And certainly he will forever be remembered in St. Louis. The only Cardinals in history to hit more than 400 home runs, Stan Musial and Albert Pujols, period. And I remember Stan Musial, of course, was always called the man. And when Albert came up to St. Louis and started to knock the ball lopsided because of his Hispanic heritage, they wanted to call him El Hombre. And he said, nope, there's only one man. Nice play, the feed, and then Sellers dropped it. Knowing that Pujols has a bad knee and a bad foot, that was a well thought out play, but it's the old story. How'd you come out? Ellis knows he's going away from the play, so he feeds his shortstop, and Sellers drops it. So short of perfection. They're going to give Albert a base hit, though that's 10 hits now for the Angels. And the batter is Josh Hamilton. Right. Hamilton hit into a double play and double the left to drive in a run. We were talking about leaving an imprint in the league as Pujols did in the National League. How about Hamilton? Little roller. Adrian goes to the bag. In 2010, Hamilton was the first American leaguer to have 40 doubles, 30 home runs, and 100 RBIs, and a .359 batting average, all in 1 year. The other guy who did it was Lou Gehrig. And now let's see. Meeting at the mound. The batter is Mark Trumbo. The tying run is at second base. And let's see, is Don going to go to the pen? He has Matt Guerrier down there. And that's what he's going to do. He'll bring in Guerrier to face Trumbo, and we'll be back. Brought to you by the Lexus Command Performance Sales Event, now through March 31st. And by Skechers Go Run 2 footwear, designed for speed. Here at Dodger Stadium, baseball is the theme, so we'll ask you a question tonight. Who was the last Dodger pitcher other than Clayton Kershaw to start opening day? What kind of a memory do you have? Well, while you ponder that, Matt Guerrier is going to take his warm-up tosses before chasing Trumbo, who has struck out and grounded to third. Matt Guerrier out of Cleveland, Ohio, 6'3", 195, went to Kent State. Trumbo at 6'4", 220. He hit 32 home runs last year, and he's up there now with the tying run at second base. 0-1. Trumbo originally signed a letter of intent to go to SC. His dad, a big fan. But the Angels signed him in August of 04. There was only one shock. Most people thought they would sign him as a pitcher. Oh, 0-2 the count to Mark Trumbo. Born in Anaheim, lives in Orange. 1-2. Big battle here. 8-7 Dodgers, fifth inning. Fouled at the plate. AJ shaking up on that one a little bit. Down and then came up and got him. All part of the life of a catcher. 1-2 the count. Ground ball. Sellers has his runner. Now gives it to Cruz. Cruz faking and tags him out. So that's not a very heads-up play for a great player. Albert Pujols, representing the tying run on a bad wheel, trying to go with the ball hit in front of him. He had no reason in the world to be out there. And as you can see, the flat tire, and Cruz takes care of him. So a bad play by Albert Pujols. There aren't many of those. That's the second out. Trumbo at first, and Howie Kendrick at the plate. Well, as the classicists will say on that wild pitch, in 3 words, Homer nods. Well, even Pujols pulls a rock. So we have 2 out, 5th inning, and it's 8-7 in favor of the Dodgers. However, Guerrier now wild pitches the tying run to second base. Kendrick is singled and struck out. Oh, 0-1. 0-2. Boy, Kendrick certainly not getting cheated, swinging from the heels. Two out, 0-2 the count. And a high fly ball starting to go foul down the line and back into the crowd. Though Andre Ethier, like the Music Man, certainly knows the territory. Interesting that Kendrick would hit the ball in the air. He is known basically as a ground ball hitter. Far more ground balls than fly balls. And still there 0-2. He rarely pops up on the infield. Kendrick had his big year of home runs in 2011. He hit 18. Came back to hit 8 last year. And the fly ball to right field and deep. Ethier is there. So the man who hits ground balls hits one in the air to right. Guerrero is out of the inning. Bad play by Albert Pujols. And at the end of 4.5, Dodgers hanging on, leading 8-7. Nine brought to you by Carl's Jr. made from scratch buttermilk biscuits, baked fresh every morning, and by your Southern California Chevy dealers. Bottom of the 5th inning with the Dodgers holding on to an 8-7 lead. 8 runs, 9 hits. For the Angels, 7 runs, 10 hits. And for the Dodgers, Luis Cruz will start it off, followed by Andre Ethier and then A.J. Ellis. Luis Cruz struck out on a couple of good fastballs in the first inning, but in the second inning he doubled against Vargas and knocked in a run. Ball 1. Luis Cruz appeared to come from nowhere last year, but from the middle of August until the end of the year, you wouldn't believe how well he did. There were only 5 major league hitters who batted higher than Luis Cruz. From the middle of August to the end of the year, Cruz batted .331. Another thing about him had to do with RBIs that certainly endeared him to Mattingly. Little ground ball under the glove of Cayaspo, and Ibar bails him out. So the little guys who are so close as brothers, one follows the other. 1 down. There goes Cayaspo, no play. Here comes Ibar, play. So 1 away, and Andre Ethier coming up. To conclude the thought about Luis Cruz, he became the first Dodger to have an RBI in his first 4 games since Jimmy Wynn did it 6 straight years. That was back in 1974. 6 straight games, an RBI for the toy cannon, as they called him. Jimmy Wynn. Ethier has walked, hit back to the box. Oh, and 1. Ethier last year with 20 home runs, 89 runs batted in. Hit .284. 0-1. And hits one to the left center field deep. Back to the track at the wall is Trumbo to make the catch. Slumming over was shut. So 2 down. And the batter will be Ellis.
17,
A reminder, Wednesday, April the 17th, the first 50,000 fans at the game with the Padres receive their own Dodger-themed Hello Kitty fleece blanket. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. So Ethier a long out to left. And here's A.J., who had the grand slam home run to center in the first inning when the Dodgers scored 5. Ball 1. Vargas, Stetters, Carpenter, and Richards. Dodgers did all their scoring in the first 2 innings. Dodgers then had the Angels score in each of the first 4 innings, only to come up empty in the 5th inning when Pujols, who was the tying run at second base, made a bad base running play and the Dodgers got out of the inning. Oh, and 1. Well, that was a pretty good fastball down. It was 95. Ellis just able to catch a little bit of it. So Garrett Richards taking control now for the Angels, hoping that his big hitters can catch up. Dodgers have Matt Guerrier in the game, but they have a left-hander throwing in the bullpen now. That's foul back. Down in the pen, J.P. Howell. There's J.P. Well, he's throwing hard and sending messages. He's fighting for a job. That was 94. One ball and 2 strikes. A.J. Ellis. So after the high fastball, a hard slider, and Richards does his job, retires the Dodgers in order, and at the end of 5, 8-7 Dodgers. Dodgers leading 8-7. They make several changes behind the plate. Tim Fedorovich, who figures to back up, and we'll start with Juan Uribe at third. Uribe moves Luis Cruz over to shortstop, so that way Mattingly sees two men and checks them on how they want. Fedorovich behind the plate, and the new pitcher is J.P. Howell. J.P. Howell, the man from Modesto, lives in Sacramento and went to the University of Texas. He was originally drafted by the Royals. The Braves tried to draft him first, but he turned it down. Then he got a scholarship to USC, and after one season at SC, he transferred to the University of Texas. So Howell, who of course can wear that name as another famous Dodger pitcher, Jay Howell, and the batter is Callaspo. So the Dodger left side of the infield, Uribe is at third, Cruz is at short, and Sellers out of the game. J.P. Howell is an even 6, about 190. His wife published a child's book, cute name, Dangles. That was in the winter of 2011. Ground ball to Uribe, and one away. So Callaspo had a 2-run home run, a single to right, and now makes his first out. Hank Congers due up, and Chris Snyder, right-hand hitting catcher, will take over for Congers. You may remember Chris Snyder. He's a big Texan, played for several years with Arizona, and Hank Conger has some time off. Well, they are fighting for the backup job behind Ionetta. Congers had struck out and single to right. Ball one. That's off the corner. 2-0 the count. Howell basically a 2-seam fastball, 4-seamer, a slider, a curveball. He also has a splitter and a cut fastball and a changeup. I mean, he brings in a deck of cards before he's ready to deal. 2-1 to Chris Snyder. Dropped that in there nicely. 2-2. From up here, I think that was the splitter. J.P. Howell. In the dirt. Good block by Fedorovich. They have been a little tardy in announcing the rotation and the pitchers for the entire Giant series. One reason was that Billingsley was questionable because of the bad finger. So we know, and the world knows, Clayton Kershaw and Matt Cain will pitch Monday afternoon. That's ball 4 to Snyder. April the 2nd, the Dodger left-hander Rio, and he'll go up against Madison Bumgarner. And then on April the 3rd, in game 3 of the Giants series, Josh Beckett will go up against Tim Lincecum. So now we know the rotation and the principles involved for the big 3 games. J.B. Shuck appeared as a pinch hitter. Fly to left, stayed in the game in center field. A strike. Oh, and 1 to count. Both clubs fired everything they had in the early innings. Now they seem to have settled down a little. Dodgers lead 8-7. Chuck badly fooled on that pitch. 0-2 the count. In fact, we'll check the count, make it 1 ball, 1 strike. Plate umpire indicating. Big breaking ball in for a strike. James Philip Howell. That's the JP. On deck, Brendan Harris, right-hand batter. Bad ball. The Shuck was really overwhelmed a little bit. He did not have his usual good swings. A couple of bad cuts at Howell. So now Harris, Brendan Harris, will come up and bat.
Brendan Harris.
Brendan Harris from Queensbury, New York, lives in Rockledge, Florida. He was originally signed by the Cubs. He went to school at William and Mary, and he has spent some time in the big leagues. He's a non-roster player. He was with the Cubs, Montreal, Washington, Cincinnati, Tampa Bay, 3 years in Minnesota. 32 years old, Brendan Harris. Time at the plate. No balls and 1 strike. 2 out, top of the 6th inning. 8 runs, 9 hits for the Dodgers. 7 runs, 10 hits for the Angels. Big overhand breaking ball. Swing, says Angel Campos. J.P. Howell certainly looks like somebody who will give left-handers a very bad time. Oh, and 2. Boy, that big overhand breaking ball in the dirt. That's a rough pitch to try and lift. When Howell was at SC, he admits he was pretty immature. He transferred to the University of Texas. He disagreed with Trojan staff, but later on, in retrospect, he understood what they were trying to do for him. See you later. Boy, he's got good stuff. There was not a good swing in the at-bats. And at the end of 5.5 innings, 8-7 Dodgers. Dodgers lead the Angels 8-7. The Angels making multiple changes now in the middle of the game. Remember the question we asked? Who was the last Dodger pitcher other than Clayton Kershaw to start opening day? Do you remember? Do you remember Vicente Padilla and his soap bubble back in 2010? Kevin Jepsen will take over on the mound. Brendan Harris stays in the game at third base. We have a new second baseman. We'll check on him for you. That's Luis Rodriguez. Well, Kendrick is out. Juan Uribe, who had a better spring than his year of 191. Played a little first base as well. Facing Jepsen, who's a local boy born in Anaheim and lives in Sparks, Nevada. And ball one. Big Chris Snyder, who batted for Conger, is behind the plate. One ball and no strikes to Juan. Just threw that right by him. 1-1. 95-mile-an-hour fastball after you've been sitting in the dugout for 2.5 hours. Kevin Jepsen is 6'3", 235. Born in Anaheim, lives over in Nevada. Boy, he's throwing hard. That was 96. He was a second-round pick by the Angels. Came up to the Angels in 2008 and 9 and 10, 11, 12. So he's been on the elevator back and forth from Salt Lake City. 2-1 the count. Tim Fedorovich is out on deck. Fedorovich picking up for A.J. Ellis, who had the grand slam home run. Three and one. And ball four. So Uribe opens up the inning with a walk. Tim Fedorovich will be coming up.
Catcher number 18, Tim Fedorovich.
Kenley Jansen begins to warm up in the Dodger bullpen. There's Big Kenley. Fedorovich with Carl Crawford on deck. And a strike. I was thinking about the day we were all over here for Fan Fest, and I was in the car with Tim Fedorovich leaving from up behind Dodger Stadium to go all the way out to center field to say hello to the fans. And as we went around the park, he was looking back from center field towards home plate. And I mean, that is an awesome sight, especially for someone trying to make the club. And the only thing he said, which was so impressive to me, he just said, you know, I've never played before a sellout crowd. And he was thinking about opening day and 56,000 people here. 1-1. Off speed for a strike. So Tim Fedorovich trying to move the Dodgers along here. It's 8-7 Dodgers, bottom of the 6th inning. Pretty good fastball away, and he went after it. So down goes Fedorovich. And the batter now is Carl Crawford.
Number 25, Carl Crawford.
Carl Crawford, single to center, single to right. 2 for 3. Hitting back of him is Mark Ellis. And pretty good fastball, just snapped it in there at 94 miles an hour. One and one. Kevin Jepson working on Carl Crawford. 8-7 Dodgers, bottom of the 6th inning. Jepson was a member of Team USA for the Beijing Olympics. That was a bronze medal winning team. He pitched great. Did not allow a run in 6 innings. Tell you something else I'm sure Kevin Jepson will remember. It was the day he made his major league debut. And all he did, it was a Monday, September the 8th. He retired Derek Jeter, Bobby Abreu, and Alex Rodriguez in order in a game the Angels won 12-1. As he said, I will never forget that. 2-1. Big chopper to first. Pujols down to his shortstop. It comes back too late. So they get a 3-6-4 play. And the batter will be Mark Ellis. So Pujols gets it down, and then the return throw by his shortstop not in time. Crawford, of course, runs exceptionally well. Mark Ellis single to left. Rode home on the grand slam by Ellis. Since then, struck out, grounded out, 1 for 3. 2 out, bottom of the 6th. 8-7 Dodgers. Pitch out. That wasn't a good pitch out. Tell you why, if we could see that again, the ball's going to wind up on the glove side of the catcher. He steps out, the throw's back there. You'd like to give him more room to make the throw, but the runner was not going, so it's okay. Crawford, of course, in his past, racked up a lot of stolen bases. I think we mentioned he stole as many as 60 bases against the Rays, for the Rays, a couple of years ago. 1 ball and no strikes. Popped up. Pujols is looking. Pujols is calling, and foul ground. So nothing across, a man left, and we have 6 in the books. 8-7 Dodgers. Dodger Baseball on KCAL 9 brought to you by Morongo Casino Resort and Spa. Good times. And by Chevrolet. Find new roads. 8-7 in favor of the Dodgers. It's been that way since the fourth inning. Angels led 1-0. Dodgers led 5-1, 5-3, 8-3, 8-4, and then 8-7. So in the seventh inning, here come the Angels against J.P. Howell. Eric Ibar has popped up, doubled, and flied to center. Uribe's in on the grass looking for that bunt, and it goes foul. Remember, we told you about the Angels last year. They had a lot of bunt singles. I mean, sure, they have the power of the Trouts and the Trumbos and the Pujols, etc., but and now the Hamilton. But they bunt. They like to bunt, and they're very successful in bunting. They were number one in the highest number of infield hits. They were number one in the highest number of bunt hits. So they can play little ball with the best of them, and can they play big ball? So Uribe still looking bunt. 0-1. 0-2. Chased that curveball in the dirt. Boy, that is one mean pitch. So J.P. Howell, very, very impressive. He has now struck out 3, and the batter is Albert Pujols. Pujols single to left, struck out, had an infield single, and now Don Mattingly looks like he's going to go to the right-hander and take J.P. Howell out of there. But Howell made a huge impression in the little time he was there. Big Kevin Gregg, a veteran coming out of the Dodger bullpen. J.P. Howell comes out, and we'll be back. Baseball on KCAL 9 brought to you by Southern California Dodge dealers and the Dodge Dart. Dodge, new rules. Dodgers go to the bullpen and bring in Kevin Gregg. Kevin is a big man, 6'6", about 245. 34 years old, out of Corvallis, Oregon. He's been in the big leagues. Go back 10 years ago, he was pitching for the Angels. He was with them in 03, 04, 05, and 06. Then he moved on to Florida, then the Cubs, then Toronto. In the last 2 years, he's been with Baltimore. He was originally selected by Oakland. So two big men, Albert Pujols, Bases Kevin Gregg. 0-1. Pujols single to left, struck out, and had an infield single last time up. Little ground foul. 0-2. Just to give you an idea of what kind of a hitter he is, you figure you're really in trouble. No balls and 2 strikes in his career. He's hit over 140 home runs with 2 strikes in the count. And last we checked, he had something like 18 on an 0-2 count. So you have 0-2 count to Pujols, and you're not quite sure that you have the edge. Just off the plate. He was a little angry when he was called out on strikes in the 3rd inning. Three and 2. Down and dirty, and down goes Pujols, striking out a 2nd time. Chasing that breaking ball in the dirt. Albert comes up empty. So that means 4 of the last 5 outs have been strikeouts. Shuck, Harris, Ibar, Pujols. And Hamilton breaking his bat in a routine ground ball. That'll be that. So a very nice inning for the Dodger pitchers, Messrs. Howell and Gregg, and it's still 8-7 Dodgers. The struggle continues. The Dodgers holding on to an 8-7 lead, and the Angels will go to the bullpen again, and we'll tell you about the left-hander they brought in. But we also want to remind you, MLB.com at bat is the #1 source for live baseball everywhere you go. Available for iPhone, iPad, Android, and BlackBerry 10. Delivers Dodger baseball with live audio, pitch tracking, stats, news, highlights, and more. So text at bat to 31826 or visit Dodgers.com for details. Couple of more changes, but you're looking at Sean Burnett out of Dunedin, Florida. 6'1", 200, 29 years old, left-handed all the way out of Wellington High School. He used to watch Tommy Glavine pitch a lot, and he would videotape Glavine. And then he tried to watch as many moments of Glavine pitching as possible. And he was doing all that in high school. And in high school, he pitched a perfect game. So we'll see how he goes. Originally signed by the Pirates, he came up in 04, went down, came back up in 08 and 09. In the last 4 years, Sean's been with the Washington Nationals. Matt Kemp, and strike one. Matt tonight doubled, walked, and struck out. In the dirt, kicks all the way over to Adrian Gonzalez. 1 ball and 1 strike. Burnett was the Pirates minor league pitcher of the year, but that was way back in 2001. Working on Matt Kemp. Fouled away. Another thing about Sean Burnett, although you can't tell in uniform, but his father, Rich, overcame a brain tumor in 2004. So in his honor of his father, he has a tattoo on his back that says, "Against all odds." Two balls and 2 strikes. Little ground ball to the hole, long throw at short, quick release, nice play. Andrew Romine really does unless you're paying attention, watch this. I mean, he doesn't have much of a chance, can't run, just throw, got him easily. Fine play by Andrew Romine, who's a fine young player. Just waiting his turn. And here now, Adrian Gonzalez. Strike. Gonzalez struck out, reached on an error, which was then turned into a fielder's choice. That was back in the 2nd inning. And then last time up, grounded out to first. Ground ball, but right at the second baseman, Rodriguez. Dodgers did a lot of running and scoring and hitting in the first 3 innings. And that's been it. Since the 3rd inning, the Dodgers have had 1 man get on base, and that was Uribe, who walked. I mean, there they are, 8 runs in the first 2 innings, and then silence. But they're still leading 8-7. Ball 1. One ball, no strikes, 2 out, bases empty. Dodgers 8 runs, 9 hits. Angels 7 runs, 10 hits. And hard ground ball, base hit. So Luis Cruz, playing 3rd and finishing up at short, goes 2 for 4. And the batter will be Andre Ethier. Ethier walked in the 1st inning, hit back to the box, and flied to left. No 0 for 2. That's Efren Navarro over there at first base, taking over for Albert Pujols. Jerry Hairston comes out of the Dodger dugout. He's on deck. Breaking ball off the corner. So with a 2-out single by Cruz, Ethier trying to keep things alive, and Hairston looking for a lick. High fly ball, shallow left. Romine out, and you knew they were going to bump together. And scoring on the play is Cruz. It was a routine fly ball to left, and Romine, who had made a fine play on the ball hit by Kemp, just forgot where he was. I mean, it's an easy play for left field, but he's going to go out there and crash. Oh, luckily, no man hurt. Over-eager young shortstop. All right, the Dodgers now lead 9-7. They'll give Romine the error. No reason to be at that far, for sure. And here now is Hairston. Ball one. So Ethier at second base with 2 out, the single by Cruz, and then the mix-up in shallow left field. 9 runs, 10 hits for the Dodgers, 7 runs, 10 hits, and 1 error for the Angels. Foul back. We are all aware Clayton Kershaw and Matt Cain Monday afternoon. One ball, one strike. Fouled at the plate. Ryu and Bumgarner Tuesday night. And then Josh Beckett and Tim Lincecum on Wednesday night. Chris Snyder took a whack with the big catchers. Then at the other end, a foul ball for a long time. 1-2. 2-2. Sean Burnett. Big league pitcher ever since 2004. Fastball, and he went down to get it and just did get a piece of it. With Burnett, they're going to get a fastball somewhere in the high 80s to 93. He's not overpowering. But they say he has a very good slurvy kind of a curveball. He has a Tommy Glavine changeup. Remember, we talked about all the videotape he studied of Glavine. And he throws in a slider as well. Slider basically against left-handers. Still 2-2. Burnett signed a 2-year deal to be with the Angels and an option for a third. Breaking ball hit to third. And that'll do it. But the Dodgers get a run on the over hustle of Andrew Romine. And at the end of 7, it's 9-7 Dodgers. Dodgers leading the Angels 9-7. It's a whole new blue. And it's not a completely different ballpark, but I will certainly say that it's a better fan experience. There's more comfort, wider walkways, newer concession stands, new seats, and of course the two gems atop the left field and right field areas. Sometime, I'm sure, during the regular year, they will have collected some videotape of what they did downstairs. In other words, going way back when they built Dodger Stadium, basically what they did was build a huge hole and then build the stands around the sides of the hole. So when they finally decided architecturally to change the stadium so much, they couldn't go backwards because that was rock. That's the wall. So they went down and out. And it's amazing what's gone on underneath the stands. Dressing rooms, medical rooms. And one day I'm sure we'll have some videotape and we'll be able to take you on a tour of what's gone on down below. It is amazing. Foul ball, 0-1. Kenley Jansen is working. Mark Trumbo, who was in that collision with an overeager Andrew Romine, and Kenley Jansen trying to go after him. That's going to go foul and back into the crowd. Trumbo struck out, grounded out, reached on a fielder's choice. Strikeout leading off in the second inning against Josh Beckett. Big Kenley, the kid from Curacao, 6'5", about 255. Almost got him. Just did get out of the way. Dodgers have a youngster at shortstop, Miguel Rojas. So Cruz has come out of the game. Whoa, bad ball. Mark annoyed with himself and strikes out. Remember, we talked about how he likes the ball up and he'll chase him up. And then if you say, you got to lay off that pitch, he'll say, no, that's going after that fastball up. That's part of my game. Only sometimes it gets out of control. Breaking ball strike. Luis Rodriguez, the second baseman for the Angels, picking up for Howie Kendrick, who is 1 for 3. Nine runs, 10 hits for the Dodgers, including a grand slam in the first inning by A.J. Ellis. For the Angels, they had a 2-run home run by Callaspo and a 3-run home run by Mike Trout. And a fly ball frozen for the moment in right field was Yasiel Puig, and the big boy from Cuba catches the fly ball and gets a roar from the fans out there in right field. He's heading for Double-A, but most people feel it won't be too long before he comes back. Puig hit better than .500. He had a dazzling spring. Efrain Navarro, the second baseman, in fact the first baseman for the Angels, checking in. In for a strike, 0-1. The attendance tonight here at Dodger Stadium, 34,157. 34,157. That's a strike. Jansen trying to nail down the 8th inning. Comebacker. Nice easy inning for Kenley. So the 8th inning, in the top half of it anyway, goes into the books. And we're heading to the bottom of the 8th. 9-7 Dodgers. Dodgers holding on to what is now a 9-7 lead, but the big play of the game occurred in the very first inning with the bases loaded and 2 out. A.J. Ellis got a fastball above the belt and hit it in the center field seats against Jason Vargas. That gave the Dodgers a 5-1 lead. It got close to 5-3, then it was 8-3, then it got close to 8-7, and now it's 9-7. And it's interesting it happened tonight. We talked about it at the start of the game, how in baseball a fella can be cut by one team and picked up immediately by another. And that's what happened here. Mark Lowe was with the Dodgers in spring training, and they just felt they had too many pitchers, and they released him, and the Angels immediately grabbed him. They need a look. Mark is 6'3" and 210 from Missouri City, Texas, and went to the University of Texas in Arlington, and he is a veteran, and a veteran basically in the American League. Uribe fouls it back, 0-1. Juan Uribe, a late appearance in the game, walked in the 6th inning. 0-1. And 0-2. Mark Lowe came to the big leagues with the Mariners in 07 and then went to the Rangers, and now here he is trying to make it with the Angels after just missing with the Dodgers. Broken bat, ground ball to short. Well, one away as Romine makes a good play. And Tim Fedorovich will now be coming up.
Number 18, Tim Fedorovich.
For the Angels, Cole Calhoun is in left field now for Mark Trumbo. So Mark Lowe breaks a bat, gets an out. And off-speed pitch drops in nicely. 0-1. Lowe will be 30 in June. No balls and 2 strikes. Basically a fastball that has been clocked as high as 101. And he has slider, change, curveball. 0-2. First time he hit 100 on the speed gun was back in 2006. I don't imagine 7 years later he's still doing that. But he can still throw hard, that's for sure. Whack down the line, foul. Mark Lowe has had a lot of physical problems as he works on Fedorovich. In fact, they say that he's pitching at all is a medical marvel. He had a rather different arm surgery. No one thought he'd be able to come back from it. That'll do it for Fedorovich. What happened with Lowe, he had an arthroscopic procedure to regenerate missing cartilage in Lowe's elbow by poking tiny holes in the bone, like microfracture surgery, often performed on the knees of NFL and NBA players. And it's usually something you see in violent collisions. And he had this thing done, and here he is still bringing it. Then to really knock him on his ear, in 08, he took a spring training blood test, and he was told for the first time he had type 2 adult onset diabetes. And yet, there's Mark Lowe pitching to Nick Punto. 1 ball and no strikes. 2-0. Two balls and no strikes. Just missed. With 2 out in the inning, Everybody in the ballpark is rooting for Punto to get on base. Why? Because of the on-deck hitter. Yes, Yasiel Puig. And ball 4, and here comes Puig.
Batting right field, number 66, Yasiel Puig.
Well, they have heard so much about him. They saw a little bit of him in spring training. They know that he's not going to make the club, even though he hit .526. Chris Snyder looks over to Socia before settling into a crouch. Puig is very impressive. 6'3", 245. Oh and 1. A lot of people who saw him in spring training, considering his build, his strength, his power, and above all, his speed. As big as he is, he flies. And they immediately think of Bo Jackson. But he is so raw. 22 and just starting out. Popped in the air to right field. Coming a long way is Grichuk, and makes the catch. So at least the Dodgers had him in the lineup, and the fans had a chance to see him swing the bat. And at the end of 8, Dodgers 9, Angels 7. Dodgers leading 9-7. They took the lead 5-1 in the first inning and have not been caught. And they bring in Brandon Lee. So it's been Beckett and Belisario, Guerrier, Howell and Gregg, Jansen, and now Brandon Lee. Lee, who figures to be the closer, was signed by the Dodgers as a free agent. He's from Sacramento, lives in San Diego. And for Brandon, very much of an experienced pitcher. He first came up with Toronto in 2004. He stayed with Toronto with up and down trips to Syracuse, then went to Seattle. And from Seattle, he wound up with the Dodgers last year, and his earned run average was 2.3. So Brandon pitching to the catcher, Chris Snyder, and ball 1. Snyder finishing up for Conger, who had struck out and singled, and Snyder walked back in the 6th inning. Had misses, ball 2. Brandon Lee, married with 3 daughters, attended St. Louis High School in Honolulu. Played baseball and football over there. That's in there. Chris Snyder leading off in the 9th inning. Dodgers 9 runs, 10 hits. Angels 7 runs and 10 hits. Dodgers have now used 7 pitchers. Angels have used 6. In there again. So 3-2 the count to Chris Snyder. And he walked him. For the Angels, they have not had a hit since the 5th inning. And they've had 2 base runners on walks. And the Dodgers have really had just 1 hit since the 3rd inning. But an error gave them an extra run. So here's J.B. Shock that came in as a hitter in the 4th inning, flied to left, and last time up struck out. One ball and no strikes. Brendan Harris on deck. That's a strike. Took a little off it. 1-1. Both teams play in Anaheim tomorrow. Then no game Easter Sunday. Then the Dodgers host the Giants on Monday. Kershaw pitching game 1. Ryu pitching game 2. Beckett due to pitch game 3. Bumgarner pitching game 2. Lincecum pitching game 3. That dropped in there for a strike. That's a tough pitch. It looked like it was up out of the zone, and then at the last second it dropped in. Two and two. It's been a long spring training. The reason it's been so long, of course, the World Baseball Cup. The Dodgers, for instance, will have played 30 exhibition games. And there's a base hit to right field. Puig is up with it and guns it to third, not in time. And so now the Angels are very much alive on a walk and a base hit to right field. The Angels' first hit since the 5th inning. Tying runs aboard, and Brendan Harris coming up. Scott Van Slyke holding a corner on Shock. So now the Angels have out-hit the Dodgers. Dodgers 9 runs, 10 hits. Angels 7 runs, 11 hits. 34,157. Seeing an exhibition game. Fouled at the plate, 0-1. So the regulars play deep into the game, and then the last couple of innings, as they used to call them, the extra men, are finishing up. No balls and 1 strike. Shuck at first, Snyder at third. Nobody out. Dodgers lead by 2. in the dirt. No play at the plate, and down to second base on the wild pitch goes Shuck. So now the tying runs are at second and third on a wild pitch, and nobody out. For Mattingly and Socia, I think the big problem tonight, the starting pitching. Jason Vargas gave up 8 runs. Josh Beckett gave up 7. Both starting pitchers, and both figure to be pitching very shortly. Beckett, in fact, due to pitch the 3rd game of the Giants series. Well, now here's League, who figures to be the closer, at least at this stage, and struggling. Down in the Dodger bullpen, the left-hander Paco Rodriguez gets up. 1 ball and 1 strike. A little line drive for the out. Scott Van Slyke snares it. To Harris, soft line drive, 1 out. Andrew Romine is coming up. Romine has made 2 good plays. One where he fielded the ball deep in the hole, had no chance to really wind up and throw, and made a perfect throw. Then he made a bad play going way out into left field to collide with Mark Trumbo. And he hits one up the middle, smothered by Punto, and that means the Dodger lead is by 1, and that was a tie-saving play. So that should have gone all the way, and 2 runs scored except for Punto. So Romine, a base hit, and Snyder brings the run in. So now the tying run is at 3rd. Randall Gerchik, who's the right fielder, is coming up. Big play by Nick Punto. So League, like the starters, now as the closer, he is struggling. Only 1 out. Ball 1. We always talk about the percentage. Baseball is 80%, 90%, 75%, whatever. And for managers Mattingly and Socia, it will not be a settling night. That was a bad throw, kind of a lob, and Van Slyke saved League from throwing that away. So Grichuk up there with runners at 1st and 3rd and 1 out. He's out of Texas, and he's only 21 years old. Wow. So first one throw was almost in the dirt. Now Brandon almost threw that away. Big save by Scott Van Slyke. One and 1. Grichuk, Grichuk, out of Rosenberg, Texas. 21 years old. Been in the agent organization since 2009. All right, 1 and 1. And little foul, no chance. 1 and 2 the count. On deck, hoping to get an at bat, Cole Calhoun. One and 2. in the dirt, swung on and missed. First base was occupied, so he's done. So now with 2 out in the 9th inning and going to second base on that pitch in the dirt, so the Angels now have the tying run at third and a possible go-ahead run at second. Cole Calhoun will come up. Mattingly, who's almost had enough of this tonight, will now have to go out and it looks like lift his closer. We'll wait to see if he takes the ball. Yep, they're going to the pen, and we'll be back. Paco Rodriguez, the left-hander, coming out of the Dodger bullpen. Cole Calhoun is a left-hand batter, so he will not come up. And Luis Jimenez will be the batter. Jimenez, a 24-year-old right-hander from Santo Domingo, signed as an international free agent about 8 years ago. His nickname is Lucho. 24 years old. Luis Jimenez. He has never played in the big leagues. He was at Salt Lake City last year. Had a big year, hit .309. So it has come down to this. After all the scrambling and all the pitching and all the hitting, 3.5 hours, it's 9-8 Dodgers. And the Angels have the tying run at third, a go-ahead run at second, and the battle is Paco and Lucho. And a strike, 0-1. No balls and 1 strike. Ground foul, 0-2. One thing about Rodriguez, you talk about how pitchers hide the ball on the hitter. Rodriguez shows the ball to the hitter. When he extends his left arm, he really holds that ball out. Oh, 0-2. Nice save behind the plate. Tim Fedorovich with a runner at third, the tying run, and a runner at second, the go-ahead run. Brandon League hoping that Rodriguez to do what he couldn't do and close it. Breaking ball got him looking. So the Dodgers hang on. You can't really call it an impressive performance by either pitching staff. But again, the footnote, it's an exhibition game. But it will not be an exhibition game on Monday. It will be all and everything. The Giants and the Dodgers, Monday afternoon, Tuesday night, and Wednesday night. And we can't wait to talk to you till then. Good night, everybody.